conference room. And it's Wednesday, August 5th. And I will call the meeting of the TPO Executive Committee to order. Call the roll, please.
Councilman Sander.
Here.
Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
Mayor Cloudman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gillis. Here. Commissioner Dance.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Very good. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody back to get to work for TPO. Hope you all had a good summer, good time off. Are there any public comments? Persons online to public comment? Oh, okay. That item's out of the way. So we'll get right down to business. Discussion of the TPO Executive Committee vacancy. We have one vacancy on the Executive Committee, and TPO staff is requesting direction from us to fill in that vacancy. In order to just kind of help us along, put together a chart of all the board members, and this reflects their terms, so that when we're looking at the overall picture of the board members, we can see who's on the board and their terms might be up when we make decisions. Do you have any input for us, Helen?
So the way the bylaws read is the executive committee is made up of the three officers, the immediate past chair, and then there's three members at large that are appointed by the chair. But in recent practice, we've had discussions at the executive committee as to how to fill that spot, and then the chair does make the ultimate direction for the appointments. So we do have one vacancy in that at-large spot. Typically, the executive committee, we look at the membership across our geographic boundaries. So both Flagler and Volusia County. And Volusia County, we look at the east side as well as the west side. And then we also try to balance the size of the cities across the two as well. So we have smaller cities. We have had members from the Small City Alliance on the executive committee. There's nothing in the bylaws that says that we can't have that. But we do try to spread it amongst the size of the cities as well as geographically.
Right.
Do we have to make this decision today since the primary is coming up? Some of these would be determined in the primary.
Well, we had to, yeah, that's the, and that's the reason for the highlight on the sheet, so that we can take that into consideration. Who's vulnerable. We have no predictors of the outcome of the races, and that's the highlighted yellow ones are the positions that are pending. So that would help inform our decision if we wanted to select somebody who's not going to be in a vulnerable position.
I was looking over the list, and I was thinking of attendance, and I know that we look at geographical regions, and I was going to bring up Roger Eckert. I know he does a lot, and I know he will always show up and he asks questions, and he's kind of in the middle between east and west over in Lake Helen. Well, it's at least kind of in the middle to me.
That's right.
And then we'd have somebody from the Small Cities Alliance, being that we had Rick before.
He's always, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to bring Roger up.
Are these underlying ones that are termed out, essentially?
They will be. I don't think Mayor Chose will be.
She's done.
She's turned out, or her.
She's turned out, and Dawn's not seeking re-election.
Well, there's, yeah. She's done, but she's termed out, but she also she wouldn't run again.
Okay, and she's not currently on the voter rolls or candidacy rolls.
Gotcha.
For the.
Yeah, I mean,
the same with Jake Johansson.
I would have probably suggested her. I know potentially if we're talking about geographic, that puts to West Volusia.
Right.
No, I've tried working on her for years to get her. And
she's very active and always has something to say, so I think that's productive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's tremendous amount of input, but.
Yeah, I was going to suggest Roger because of his commitment to the TPO, but also being from the west side, that are may or may not have time, but also Councilman Matt Reiner from the county is typically in attendance as well.
Yeah, Matt shows up he's very reliable on things. I don't know what his schedule is, but I like the idea of Roger Ackert, though. He has good input.
Yeah, I mean, if all goes well, DeBerry will have a replacement mayor that's also very active, but that's in the future.
That's in the future. We'll have to make another decision
That won't be too long.
later on.
At least every 2 years.
Yeah, well, pending the results of August, we have, two of our board members here are so pending what happens. I think positive thing, and hope that the public agrees with the current members in that position. So anyway, is everybody
I'm good with that.
agreeable with approaching Roger Ackert for the position?
Sure.
Is it? Do we need to vote on it, or do we want just a consensus?
A consensus is fine, and then I can reach out to him directly and see if he's interested
Okay.
in serving, if he has time to serve as well.
So we want to pick a
Should,
second one in
should we
case
s-
you can't say it.
What's that?
Should we pick a second
I
one?
was just gonna say, we should probably pick a second choice if.
Attendance that would be helpful, knowing who makes it.
He's faithful.
No, not him, but as in evaluating the second.
It's true.
Others that are consistent. Skip.
Deborah Snow from Holly Hill. So I like the idea of Skip. He's always, or Deborah Snow as well. Tracy Grubbs in Port Orange. He's relatively new to the board.
Also, and then he just got, well, he's new to the panel. Because he was the alternate before for.
He was an alternate, and then Reed resigned. Tracy took his place.
If Tracy could do it, though, he just got elected. So you'd have some 4 years.
Yeah.
He's got
I would
another
assume.
term to go.
Yeah, no, he's got a full
Trying
4
to
years.
suggest
Yeah.
another flag.
Any suggestions for an alternate?
Something from Marine.
Well, I think there's a choice of 2. Right.
I think the last census was 10.
Yeah, that municipality should not even exist, but sure.
What about Deborah Snow from Holly Hill?
I'm good.
I don't have, I don't know. Or I don't know.
Did we not, what were the thoughts on Matt Reinhardt?
Whether or not he has time on his schedule. He is extremely busy, as are all county council members.
He also does chair the TDLCB, Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board for the TPO. He also sits as a member of the Central Florida MPO Alliance. So he does participate a lot with the TPO. I know when he initially came on board as a TPO board member, he did express interest in potentially serving, but that was 4 years ago now.
So it was before he
Before I signed up for
obligated
private
himself for
dollars.
other things. Yeah.
But I'm more than happy to reach out to some members and engage their interests and maybe bring back kind of a list of candidates next month that we can maybe discuss a little bit further. I can also bring forward the attendance records, and then that way you have a little more information in front of you. It's not a decision that has to be made today, to answer your question. Commissioner Dance. It's just with a 7-member body, or a 6-member body, we need a quorum of 4. So when we have an additional member, we still just need a quorum of 4. So it just helps us meet the quorum for this.
I thought we had agreed on one.
If we want to go that route, I can reach out to him first.
After the election, just having somebody back.
That makes sense. Yeah, let's just go with the one
reach out to
recommendation, see what happens in 2 weeks.
Yeah, knowing Roger well enough,
I think
I
Roger
would-
will accept.
highly doubt he'd.
Yeah, he takes participation pretty seriously in things like this. Okay, well, we'll go with that. We'll make an alternate selection, post-election. Yeah, 2 weeks or so, so.
I look forward to its work. Going down.
Yeah, is that all you need? Okay, very good. Thank you all for your input on that. Item B is discussion of the TPO meeting schedule. The TPO committees and board typically meet 10 times a year. TPO staff proposes to reduce the number of meetings during the year and is requesting input from the executive committee on how to go forward on that. Can you give us insight?
Yes, absolutely. So we do meet 10 months out of the year. And within those 10 months, we meet each week of each month with different committees. So the first week of the month is the executive committee, then the second week is the BPAC and sometimes the TDLCB. The third week is the CAC-TCC and the fourth week is the board. So doing that 10 months out of the year sometimes makes it difficult to actually do planning work, for staff members to be able to go to conferences because it typically takes all of our staff to run the meetings. I have inquired amongst the other MPOs within District 5 of how many times they meet. Metro Plan Orlando and Lake Sumter each meet 8 times a year. Space Coast TPO typically in the past has met 8 times a year. However, this year they're meeting 7 times. And then Lake Sumter meets 5 times a year. Not quite sure how they do that. I think going down that few meetings is pretty drastic. But I would like to move forward and kind of looking at a schedule where maybe we're meeting 8 times a year as well. We would need to make sure that when we meet is when approvals are needed. Obviously, at the end of the fiscal year, when we approve our TIP and our law, and then every 2 years when we have to adopt a new UPWP, our LRTP schedule. But what I would like to do is at the end of this calendar year, probably at the November meeting, propose a schedule to the board that they adopt for the following year. And then that way we're also not canceling meetings because we do, technically.
We've canceled 2 of them this year, right?
Right. Well, per the bylaws, we're supposed to meet every year, but we typically cancel July because it's hard to get quorum. And then December, same reason with the holidays, it's hard to get quorum. But if we come together with the schedule of what the following year's meetings are and keep it on, the 4th Wednesday of every month is the board meeting. It's just really the frequency of how many months we meet throughout the year. But I just wanted to get some direction before we kind of went down and did a lot of legwork on that and trying to develop a schedule. I just wanted to get some input from this committee.
If anything comes up that's urgent, there is the ability for the TPO chair, myself, to do a signature without board approval on sort of certain items.
On certain items, yes, with the caveat that we bring that item back at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. And we have used that before for TIP amendments that needed approval when we didn't have a board meeting. 1 month we didn't have a quorum for a board meeting, and we had some TIP amendments, and we actually had an LRTP amendment that needed to move forward and could not wait. So we do have a policy directive that allows the chair to sign off on those.
And I'm local, so I could send a call. So happy to do that.
Right.
And that would make sure that business gets done without needing a full meeting.
And most of the, the tip amendments that we process throughout the year are projects that are on our priority lists. It's usually projects that need additional funding or funding has become available and now they're able to move into the work program. So it's not a new project that hasn't been seen or hasn't been reviewed. Whether it's in our LRTP or whether it's in, the current tip, and it just is additional funding that's needed. When I asked the other executive directors, especially like Sumter, who only meets 5 times, like, what do they do in situations like that? And they have a strong policy that allows those authorizations outside of the board meeting. And actually, like Sumter, it's allowed to the executive director to sign off on those. I prefer to have it go through the chair and leave the policy as is. But that's something we may want to look at and make sure that that's strong enough to be able to capture any scenarios that we may run into.
So for the additional 2 meetings that would be looking to remove essentially, just look at past attendance for quorums, try to target the next 2 lowest attended meetings of the year that are typical.
It would probably more fall off based on the schedule of when we need items approved. So a lot of times in the beginning of the year, February sometimes is a low month in terms of having items that we would bring or need to bring before the board. So we would generally look at that, but we could also take a look at the attendance as well, because I know that's why the July meeting is typically canceled, just because people are.
You have 2 months that are slated already in mind that you would like to have no meetings in?
So I've started looking at the calendar, I think either a February or March. We definitely need to meet May and June because of the end of the fiscal year. And I think April is probably a good month for us to meet too. And so maybe then another one in the fall.
November?
Probably not November because we don't meet in December.
Okay.
But maybe a September or an October. Again, it's something that we haven't really taken a deep dive and laid out, what we have coming up and all of those requirements. And sometimes, maybe when it's an LRTP year, we may need an additional meeting. But if we adopt the calendar every year, then we can identify when we need to have those meetings.
Very good. What we don't see, guys, is with all of the meetings that they have here, it's their workflow is TPO staff's workflow is interrupted quite a bit just to host these meetings. Or the agendas, get the room set up, record them, go over the entries in the minutes. So it really interrupts workflow. So this makes sense to me to do this.
I agree.
So would this be as simple as you're saying as adopting a schedule each year, or do we need to make a change in the bylaws to structure it going forward?
There would need to be a change in the bylaws, and that's an activity that we've identified this year to amend the bylaws, because right now the bylaws do call out the months that we meet. But the change in the bylaws could be per the adopted schedule, the annually adopted schedule. But the bylaws would have to be amended, but not just for this. There's a lot of other items within the bylaws that we need to look at an amendments in this upcoming fiscal year.
Okay. And all of the committees, when we have like, say, a land use item at the city or county, that it has to go through a series of the committees, one to the other, but I don't think anything we do has this. It's just getting input from each committee. Can they be consolidated into 1 week, or even like, at 10 a.m. you have that committee and at 2 p.m. you have this committee?
We can look at that, looking at the other calendars from especially Metro Plan as well as Space Coast. They do that. they have a couple free weeks in each month where they don't have meetings. We currently consolidate our CAC and our TCC. They occur on the same day, they're back-to-back meetings. But we also have our BPAC. Now Space Coast BPAC does not meet they meet 5 times a year. So maybe it's something where, you know, those committees, because the BPAC is an elective committee, it's not a required committee to have by statute. The CAC and the TCC are.
Okay.
So we can, you know, maybe look at coordinating some of those or changing some of those.
If I may speak, Colleen, just let everybody know, Space Coast is going to merge the BPAC into their CAC committee.
Oh,
It's
wow.
not going to be a standalone committee much longer.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
Thank you for that, Chuck.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I mean, I don't have any problem reducing, try one fewer meeting coming up. March makes sense, because you don't have 2 of them too close together. But maybe you do, the committees don't meet quite as often, to give you some breathing room as well. You mentioned that, so they could be further consolidated.
Well, this is the request is for the committees and the board.
Yeah, if we reduce the frequency in terms of the number of months that are met, they would also apply to the committees. Because we typically take the same items to the individual committees to get recommendations as well.
I think it's a solid request. I'm agreeable to it. You need a vote or just consensus?
No, just a consensus. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at the calendars. I'll also reach out to Georgiana at Space Coast to find out, you know, about that consolidation, and if it's something that, you know, we see would be beneficial here. Now, our BPAC is a very active committee, standalone committee by themselves. So that might not be something that works up here for us, but we can take a look at that, and we can also have these discussions at our committees as well.
Well, if it doesn't work for BPAC, maybe they could stay in the same schedule, but all the other committees could be reduced, and it still would be beneficial for you all.
Right. I was talking about the consolidation.
Okay, yeah.
Because those 2 committees, the BPAC and the Citizens Advisory, they are citizen committees. So they're citizens that are appointed by each board member. So, but we'll do a little more research. I didn't want to, you know, start spending a lot of time or getting into the weeds of this. This was definitely something that, you know, we didn't see beneficial for the TPO.
It's a viable request for me, because I see it as your workflow would not get interrupted as much, and you could really get projects done. I was saying earlier, I'm the kind of a person that once I start a project, I like to get it finished. Interruptions just aggravate.
Not a fan of meetings, obviously for us, that's the only way to get anything done, but for you guys, that's not the case.
Right.
So, in my other job, not a fan of meeting all day and then not being able to get the work done. that we actually have to get done. So
We all good with that request?
Yeah.
Yep, everybody nods their head, so you got that.
And there's also always the option just to call a meeting.
Exactly, yeah, as long as there's enough notice and we see a need coming up, there's always that possibility of calling a meeting. Good. All right, good, thank you for your input on that. Okay, let's see. Discussion of TPO projects and activities for fiscal year 2027. TPO staff will lead a discussion of the proposed projects and activities identified in the Unified Planning Work Program for fiscal year 27.
Okay, so as you know, in the spring, it was in April, we adopted our new UPWP. And within that, we adopted a number of deliverables and tasks that we would be working on. It's broken up into fiscal years, which fiscal years the tasks fall under. the first fiscal year, there's a lot of heavy on the admin tasks and updating a lot of our documents such as our bylaws. So starting to put together a schedule for the activities that we were doing. And again, that's kind of how the meeting schedule came about and looking at that. Just wanted to get some input from the executive committee so then we can bring this back for your review in terms of the work activities that we're doing throughout the year. And a lot of this applies to what I consider or call our elective activities. So it's not the requirements that we have to do, the federal requirements like adopt a TIP and a LOP every year. These are the studies that we've elected to do throughout the year, as well as update a number of our documents. Now, one caveat to this is when we start a new UPWP cycle, we have a new funding contract with FDOT. And so that funding contract starts July 1, but it does not include all of our money for the first fiscal year. It does not include the de-obligated funds, so the funds that we de-obligated from our prior UPWP to use in our new UPWP. And those are the funds that we allocate mainly for consultant services. So those will come to us concurrent or along the lines of the federal fiscal year, which starts in October. So we don't have those funds yet to be able to do all of the consultant work up front. So we just have to balance it or spread it out throughout the year. We do have our PL allocation that we receive for fiscal year 27 that was authorized for us to use as of July 1. So that covers our operating costs, our staff salaries, so all of that's covered. It's really just kind of the elected services or the money that we use for consultants. We do have some that we can use. We just have to balance the work that we do in the first 3 months until we receive that additional authorization for those de-obligated funds. But as I mentioned, there were a number of admin tasks that we identified in our UPWP that are outdated and need updated. Our bylaws are one. Our employee handbook is from 2012. Our purchasing manual is from 2014. So all of those really need to be updated. We have a very strong legal counsel that does specialize in contracts. So she's going to be going through our purchasing manual as well as our employee handbook and helping us update those. So that stuff is going to be done early on in the fiscal year where I'm working on scoping that out now with our legal counsel. We'll be bringing that back for a request for expenditure coming up. We also have our TPO website, which is really the old River to Sea TPO that we've updated with our new logo, but it's something that we've talked about before. Definitely need a fresh look. It's been over 10 years, I believe. Yes, it's that website was put together, but really kind of that whole branding package and bringing that together. So we've been developing a scope for that. There are some new requirements that we need to meet on the ADA front and making sure that we're all up to speed and everything meets all of those requirements. So that's another admin task that we're going to be tackling in the first part of the fiscal year. With regard to planning projects, we did talk about some type of an e-bike study. What that looks like, we haven't developed a scope for, but that's something that we will be tackling in this first fiscal year, but it'll probably take place after the start of the federal fiscal year. So sometime later this year or the very beginning of next year because of the funding and when we would receive the funding for it. Also an update to our congestion management process. So because we are a TMA MPO, meaning our urbanized area population exceeds 200,000, we have additional federal requirements. And so this is a document that we update every 5 years. So it's time to update it. Typically we update it either concurrently with the adoption of the LRTP or immediately after. We do have in this coming fiscal year our federal certification that's done once every 4 years. So we'd like to get this updated prior to that occurring, and that typically occurs toward the end of the fiscal year. But that is an activity that will be coming up next year. In addition, we've also committed funds to the Volusia County Transit Services Department for updating their TDP and TDSP. So we approved that in our June board meeting, the allocation of funds. And then also the continuation of the Bike Walk Central Florida Best Foot Forward program. We previously funded the expansion into Flagler County, so we'll continue to do that. FDOT had previously funded the program in Volusia County for, I believe, 3 years total. But now they're stepping back, so their funding isn't 100% in Volusia County. So we've identified, and I've worked with their executive director to come up with a scope and a fee proposal to cover those additional funds, so we can continue the program in both counties. So those are kind of the activities that are coming up within the first fiscal year, really heavy loaded on the front on the admin stuff, and then moving into planning activities. One other item that we do typically every year are feasibility studies for our member governments. So last year, we only accomplished our traffic operations feasibility studies. So this year we'll be working on our bike ped as well as the traffic operations. But again, those have to occur after the start of the federal fiscal year because of the funding allocations. But we do have a number of studies that have been identified. We utilize our consultants to prepare those studies for the local governments. And the idea is for the governments, it's not a requirement when submitting for our call for projects that we do a feasibility study, just one has to be done. So some of the larger governments do the studies themselves in-house. But some of the medium sized and smaller ones do reach out and request feasibility studies. We do have a 10% required match for those feasibility studies. So looking at, the UPWP that was adopted, some of the activities that we're doing, trying to match schedule with, approvals and board meetings. I'm working on developing kind of a timeline schedule to include all of these so-called elective activities that we do with all of the required activities to give you kind of an idea or a guideline of like tracking throughout the year. That way, when we come down to the end of the year, I know last year when my review was conducted, there was some questions about activities, what's been accomplished. So this will have a better checklist or a better kind of visual of what's happening. So I just wanted to have this discussion here to see if there's anything else that you all would like to see within that timeline or within those guidelines, or if there's any other activities that maybe I've missed that we've identified in our UPWP that I haven't talked about. Maybe it's occurring in the second year, or it's got to be pushed out a little bit.
This is a lot. It's a lot. Yes.
We did, you guys put together, I want to say 2017, 18, when the schools safety study for the schools in Flagler County. Is it possible, without redoing that, is there a possibility just to do a follow-up, see what's has been accomplished, what hasn't, or because of growth in Palm Coast, it could even be additional recommendations. But do we follow those up, or is it just, or even with the member governments, come back together with a meeting of, these shouldn't be sitting on a shelf. These should be actively worked on.
Correct. We've had some projects come in that are a result of recommendations that came out of the school safety studies. And we did them for both Volusia County as well as Flagler County. But it's really up to the member governments either to apply for funding through our call for projects, or sometimes some of those improvements are just done in-house amongst the different jurisdictions. We can take a look at the different studies and the recommendations that have come out of there. We do have in our UPWP an activity to revisit some of those, but that's really kind of based off of a request either from the local jurisdiction or from the school board. But we could look at what that program could potentially look like. That was identified to occur in the second year of our UPWP. But I agree. I mean, there's no point in producing studies and making recommendations and just having that sit on the shelf, because we also have turnover amongst the cities at the jurisdiction that they may not even be aware of the studies that were completed.
Superintendents since then.
So just as an example, that I think the study back then suggested the mid-block flashing light that I think we've discussed, and then Best Foot Forward also suggested it as well. And there's been no action on it, so to speak. I don't think it qualifies for the call for projects for TPO, so it has to be some other source of funding. So I get potentially why it hasn't, because there's a myriad of traffic issues in Falcons because of all the but yeah, I think it's good to identify what has been suggested over time that has not been acted on, and kind of like bring it back up to the top so people are aware of it. Because of the turnover and things like that, people may not be aware of some of these things that are suggested as priorities. I think it's a good initiative to try to not necessarily reproduce the entire study at that cost level, but to identify things that have been suggested in the past that are still valid and maybe need to be brought to the local board's attention between the various city, county, and schools.
They need to add anything to this list of projects, or are you all good with this list? It's pretty ambitious, I think, for the first fiscal year anyway.
Good list. When it comes to e-bikes and whatever, we're doing a study on that. Good example locally here, if we're suggesting regulations, make sure you're speaking with those that will be enforcing them before you pass something.
Well, I think, it's time, there's been quite a few regulations or attempts to regulate e-bikes now, and those can be used as examples to go forward with something that may be successful.
Yeah, it's definitely a current topic, and I know the state is talking about doing their own statewide regulations on them.
Yeah,
Well, they did, the governor
last session.
vetoed it, so,
Right.
I mean, that would be an opportunity to weigh in on passed or what was approved, that was vetoed, or potential changes to that.
So we know things come back over and over in the legislature,
until
and we'll have a new governor.
We'll have a new governor.
And it's
What was the basis? The basis was freedom, right?
so this is a study that's coming up, and it's going to be worth looking into, and there'll be a lot of examples that we can use to see what works, what doesn't work, and how to approach it. So yeah, that's a good.
This study is going to try to identify best practices and things like that in terms of regulation.
That was the initial idea. We haven't fully developed the scope. So there's two other MPOs. North Florida TPO recently completed an e-bike study that really just focused on their beachside communities. So I think there's 3 beachside communities over there, and it identified guidelines for regulations that they all 3 were they were trying to get them all 3 to buy into similar ones. Metro Plan Orlando is currently, they've just initiated a pilot program for e-bikes. So I've been looking into that to see if that's something, it's an educational program. So whether or not we want to look at maybe education within the school system regarding e-bikes. So there's a lot of different avenues or focuses that we can point towards. But again, I think when we develop the scope for that, we will bring the scope for discussion. It's not something that we'll develop at the staff level without further input.
We have worked with both the sheriff's office and the schools, developed a couple videos, especially as schools coming back in session, to educate on our e-bike ordinance. But 100% correct that 90% of the problem is enforcement, right? How that works, and you can't have your sheriffs or police pulling kids over on the sidewalk constantly to check their, whether there's an ID requirement or an age requirement or whatever. So enforcement is the most difficult aspect of this, I think.
We're kind of seeing at the county too. There's talk about it for Palm Beach, right? We have a lot of elderly folks down there that need assistance, with those e-bikes. But the big kicker, I think, for us, which kind of shut down the conversation for now, how many people got hurt or killed? One or two. So are we ultimately over-regulating? If we're just, if our police or emergency services need more resources to do it, or an educational to do it, I think we kind of took the step of education versus regulation. And, these folks that have these, or these parents that buy these for their kids, have to understand there's obviously a risk factor. Government's not going to be there to save you or hold your hand. In other words, it's not our responsibility. But at the end of the day, too, that they take a risk of getting that enforcement arm come down from law enforcement. Hey, you've got to obey the same rules as a vehicle.
Yeah.
If you don't, there's a consequence.
So if you're a boater, you have to go through a boating course.
I think from our sheriff's standpoint, that we're seeing some stuff that is a little wild. That's not your typical use case for e-bikes. And so they requested that we put in an ordinance that gives them enforcement authority, but they're not going to be, like I said, pulling over kids on sidewalks that are not
In the
crazy
event
stuff.
something major happens.
It's you've already committed a crime and you're fleeing on an e-bike that's modified. Well, now they have extra enforcement, to seize the e-bike and things like that. And again, that's not the typical use case or the typical problem with e-bikes. I think that most people see.
I think to share, the one thing that could help all the different member governments is education campaigns. So
Absolutely.
a standardized, because we've already, a lot of the municipalities have all enacted their unique, based on their community, unique codes, but an education campaign that can be brought into the schools or.
So maybe that could be rolled into the study,
Rolling
how to approach it rather than regulating.
driver's ed.
Do an education campaign, driver's eds in schools or specific outreach campaigns or e-bike.
I've seen too recently that some of the schools, I think in Orange County, have banned bike usage coming to and from the school. So there's also school boards that are getting involved with regulation.
I think I like the educational aspect of it better than trying to make rules that are difficult to enforce. So, I like that better. Yes.
The only other thing I was going to bring up is something we need to look at, but as it starts heading towards more of a reality and in like the Orange County, Orlando area, they've now moved forward with adopting policies. Should we be looking at best practices or policies for vertiports and the Volusia-Flagler air Uber, if you will?
We need to work on e-bike first.
I want to say that we made an amendment to our LDC recently for those.
Another thing, Sanders, we ran into, there's an economic side to this, to these e-bikes, believe it or not, on the beach side. especially with our concessionaires up and down the 47 miles of coastline. During COVID, we brought this in to kind of give them an additional revenue source because COVID really hurt. There's people, believe it or not, still feeling the effects of that shutdown for a while. And e-bike rentals was one of them. So those concessionaires up and down they rent them just like a boogie board, just like something.
Just like they used to rent regular bicycles.
So, and then some shops along A1A are also allowed to do it. So there's a little bit more kind of in our taste on our beach side or our beach sides. Food for thought.
Need any more direction?
No, so what I'll do now is I'll kind of take all of these activities, put them in a bring back, and then we can throughout the year when we meet, we'll just review it and kind of track and give more of a status update of where we're at during the executive committee on the different projects.
Very good. Okay, moving on to the next. It's to review and approve the May 6th, 2026 Executive Committee meeting minutes. Has anyone noticed any additions or deletions that need to be made? Not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. And next we'll review and approve the draft August 26, 2026 TPO board agenda.
So on the agenda for this month, I do need to add an item to the consent agenda, and it's an expenditure for Bike Walk Central Florida Best Foot Forward program. So they do operate off of the federal fiscal year, so their program starts. So we're currently on last fiscal year and finishing up what we're working on in Flagler County, but their fiscal year does start in October. So we'll continue, as I mentioned, we'll continue funding the entire program in Flagler County and then a portion of the program in Volusia County. So that would be an expenditure to the consent agenda. We also have a number of appointments to the TDLCB. The membership of the TDLCB is dictated by statute, but there is a requirement that the board does approve the memberships, the individuals that are appointed. And then also our interlocal coordination and review for public transportation collaborative, a planning agreement, which is called the ICAR, that just needs to be updated. That's something that DOT recently released a new template for that. We need to update that accordingly. So that is an agreement between the TPO, our two counties, as well as the transit authorities within those counties. On the action items, we do have our TIP amendment. This is the annual Road Forward amendment that we process. So these are projects that were in the prior TIP that are rolled into the new TIP by the state. And so they automatically roll in the state TIP, but we have to do a physical amendment to add those projects back into the recently adopted TIP. We also have an amendment to our UPWP. So this is an amendment to support funding assistance that we have agreed to provide to Volusia County Transit Services for the development of their TDP and their GDSP. So that activity needs to be listed in our UPWP, and it currently isn't. So we'll add that in. And then the third action item, so every 5 years, there's a redesignation in Volusia County. Currently, Votran serves as the Community Transportation Coordinator for Volusia County, and this is for the transportation disadvantage funds that they receive. So every 5 years, there's a required redesignation that needs to occur. We're currently in discussions with Volusia County Transit Services on their desire to continue this activity. I've had conversations with Bobby King. One of their concerns is just the property tax referendum and what impacts that could potentially have on their services. So they are discussing this in-house. So there are, if they choose not to be redesignated, and then TPO as the designated official planning area, we'll have to go out in an RFP and solicit another agency or agencies to provide these services. So we're currently working on coordination with Votran on that. And those are the action items that we have. The presentations, I have a couple of invites out for presentations, but I haven't received confirmation back on that. So hopefully we'll receive something here in the next couple of weeks to be able to schedule it. If not, we have some additional information that was presented to us at the MPOAC last week with regarding the transportation legislation and the impacts to the MPO, or just kind of the MPO in general. We do have a lot of members, you know, what the MPO is, what we do, what our main role is. So there are some presentations that we can pull out if we don't receive the confirmation for any other presentations. But with that, if there are groups or presentations or areas that you would like to see somebody come and speak to the TPO for specific areas, please let me know. And then that way I can reach out and try to schedule those meetings.
Very good. Any comments or questions on the proposed agenda? That sounds good. Looking for a motion to approve it.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor of the proposed agenda?
With the amendment, with the additional.
Yeah, with that additional amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, it passes. That's it. And staff comments?
I don't have anything additional.
My comment is thank you for your service. Thank you for coming out today. Get this schedule going. I appreciate your time. I really appreciate your time. I know it's a hike up here for some of you, so thank you very much for coming out. That we're adjourned.